Alright everyone, so with Jurassic World Rebirth, that is the fresh start and new era of this franchise, we now have 7 movies in the Jurassic World series, and especially for, as we know, this entire franchise as a whole, I mean, this had more misses, but even though with some of them that are good, but even though I found some of them to be entertaining, dumb, and just either of them good either way. And so, in this video, I'm going to be ranking all 7 movies from worst to best and give you guys my own opinion for why it's there, and especially with any ranking in general as well. So let's not waste any time, let's get into it. And so, if you're new, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss on any future videos. But now, let's hop right into it. And now, coming at last place at number 7 is Jurassic World Dominion. And now, this was set as the epic conclusion for the entire franchise, especially as you have the dinosaurs and the humans that are coexisting with one another. So especially as we see ziplinisation, and especially for how society bleeds into this sort of population now, and especially that this brought back the original cast from Jurassic Park, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum, and even just to blend in with the new cast, Owen, Claire, and their daughter Macy. But sadly, this movie did not deliver. In fact, this was so awful, especially as it introduced locusts with bugs. But even though it's so dumb, and why bring them back for just nonsense, especially to close out this trilogy series to conclude Owen and Claire's storyline. But even though it had a solid third act, but even though that we had some dinosaur action, it sadly did not deliver, because especially with the meaning of dinosaurs and humans having to coexist. But sadly, it does not deliver on that concept. I was on the edge of my seat, hoping that something big would happen. But it turns out it's just a mess overall. But I did appreciate the No Way Home thing of bringing back the original cast, especially what their experiences are like with these kind of reptiles, what they experience within the world of Jurassic Park, and their own fears with it. But it's just awful in terms of writing and the direction. But it was just not that good, but I'm glad that it ended in that way. At number 6 is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And now, this was following up the events that happened in Jurassic World, but it's especially for when you have the concept of Claire, who is being told that when a volcanic eruption event on an island is about to happen, it's to make all these dinosaurs become extinct, and especially for how these people see it and how they react to it, and even with Owen that gets involved. But sadly, this movie, I mean, it was terrible, but even though I don't think of it as not that great, but it was still good with the dinosaur action. But in terms of the entire story, and it's just so laughable, because especially as I was sold on the first half of the movie of trying to get these dinosaurs off the island before they die. But going to the second half to third act, it's just laughable nonsense, especially with the antagonists that felt silly, they felt goofy, and the scenes involving the mansion, and it just felt like a completely different movie. But even within the final minutes of the movie, and even though it was just not my cup of tea, but even though it did deliver some good dinosaur action, as we've seen, other than that, it's just a truly terrible movie. And even though it's got some good action to be had there, it's just another stinker. At number 5 is The Lost World Jurassic Park. And now, this was the sequel to Jurassic Park from '93, but this time we have Jeff Goldblum as the main lead, and accepting out Sam Neill and Laura Dern. They're absent from this movie, and especially with Ian Malcolm leading this movie, and adding in Julianne Moore, who plays his girlfriend, and Vince Vaughn, which I do like his comedic aspects for what he brings with his humor, because as we all know him as a comedian, he's a very funny guy. But especially with the whole concept of John Hammond, who's letting a new breed into a secret location, and even though with these characters they're all in danger, but especially with the storylines that are involved for, I don't know, for how these characters are developed. But it is dragged on for a little bit too long. It was hard for me to get sold on this concept. It's just non-stop dinosaur action, which I did enjoy, But do we really get the time to learn about any of the side characters for what meaning that they have? I don't know. But especially for when it comes to the final showdown in the third act, which I really enjoyed. It really brought the terror and for how it closes out the story. But even though I enjoyed like Ian Malcolm just like leading this entry, but nothing can come close to like the sequel. But even though I did found it to be good, but it's just not that great of a movie and not the sequel that I was expecting. But it is a good enough time. At number 4 is Jurassic World Rebirth. This is the new release movie that is out, and this is the new era, fresh start, and a reboot for the franchise. As you have an A-star cast with Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, and Jonathan Bailey, and mainly with Scarlett Johansson's character that leads this team of operatives to go retrieve samples of dinosaur DNA that could possibly save mankind and to make a difference. And especially as this was going to introduce us to these dinosaurs that we had never explored in the original Jurassic Park, and hopefully it will pay homage to the original movie and kind of like be like the best film since the original. But it turns out it didn't deliver exactly that. It wasn't what I expected for so many reasons, because especially with the storyline involving the family, and it doesn't do anything to progress the story forward. No, they were just put there to be having the film dragged out. But I did enjoy the dinosaur action, especially with the T-Rex that were after this family, and there are sequences and thrills that go down. And even though I like Jonathan Bailey for what he delivered in terms of his character aspects, and even though with the rest of the characters for how they are developed and how this was like starting fresh after Jurassic World Dominion, but even though this was it was a good enough time, and it was an entertaining wild thrill ride, especially from Gareth Edwards, and the movie did its job of trying to feel like Jurassic Park again, but some parts kind of felt like dragged out. But I think it does set up a potential for a whole new trilogy moving forward, and it's just with the dragged out feeling of not having enough dinosaurs and focusing too much on the characters. But hey, I think it was a good start, but not in a way that I hoped it would be. But there's some enjoyable enough time to be had there. At number 3 is Jurassic World, and now this was the new start to like a trilogy, and I think this was adding like a soft sequel by introducing new characters as you have Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard as Owen and Claire, and basically introducing like a whole new version of the park. Even though I've seen this movie countless times, and even though like it doesn't even feel like the original Jurassic Park, it's just like dumb and entertaining fun, because it's especially as you have like Claire's nephews in danger, and even though just with the wild thrill ride that this movie offers, especially as I love Chris Pratt riding on the motorcycle and having that type of action with the raptors chasing after him, it's just like so fun, and it's got like tons of great action sequences. But even though I don't think of it as like amazing, it's just like a good enough time to just try out some ridiculous fun stuff, and it's just an enjoyable movie either way. But hey, we still get to experience the vibe of Jurassic Park by introducing newer dinosaurs, and just to have that type of thrill within the world that is adapted into Jurassic World. And I kind of felt that, and I liked having the new set of characters what would lead to like an awful end to a trilogy. At number 2 is Jurassic Park 3, and now I do have to admit, even though this movie is not great, it is still better than The Lost World, because when you have Alan Grant leading this movie of like trying to give this couple a tour through Nevada, that is the park itself, and convinced that he will be paid for it. But it turns out that like they were trying to look for their son, and that was stranded on the island for years. And even though that you have all these characters together trying to face the terror and thrills that would come, especially with the Spinosaurus and every type of new reptile and species that will be introduced later on in the movie, it still has some good action. But and even for the fact it was the shortest film in the franchise, it still finds a way to keep it engaged, but also to learn about the characters and for what they're going through. It still lacks that kind of like charm and so sort of that kind of magic that was missing from the first movie. But hey, I really enjoy a lot of Sam Neill for what his character has come through in terms of his experiences was, and I really enjoyed him in action along with the other sequences involving like our characters in danger if they were about to be eaten. But hey, it's still a good time, and it's a step up from The Lost World. But coming number one is Jurassic Park from 1993, and this movie is so famous and iconic for so many reasons because not only is Steven Spielberg a talented and crafted filmmaker, but he brought to life computer-generated dinosaurs unlike anything we've ever seen that has never been achieved, and he accomplishes so great, and even though it's so iconic for many decades, but especially from the John Williams score to the terror that these dinosaurs end when they're loose in the park, and even the way that like it brings dinosaurs to the big screen when the world was first introduced to Jurassic Park, and for how dinosaurs will I put in this movie, and especially that it gave us Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum as Alan Grant, Ellen Santana, and Ian Malcolm as they play the roles so beautifully, especially with Alan Grant as like protecting these kids from getting eaten, and it's just like Alan Grant becoming that father figure to them, and it's just like everything about it is just so iconic, and Steven Spielberg crafted this movie to perfection, and I think this movie is rewatched so many times, and the fact that this movie came out in the early 90s and it's such an iconic movie, and I think it's quotable, and it is so memorable. And so there you have it. This is my ranking of all the Jurassic Park movies, and especially for how far this franchise has come, especially as we had some good movies, but some which more misses than hits. But hey, we enjoyed for what we got. At least it gave us dinosaurs, a new species for what to learn about them with these characters that are in danger, and even with the new era that is for Jurassic World Rebirth, and hopefully it'll give us more. I mean, I don't know for what to expect down the line, but I think we'll expect something great, especially as with the new era of Jurassic World will become a new trilogy until then. But yeah, that's all I got. But that's gonna do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments down below and what your thoughts on my ranking, and how would you rank all the Jurassic movies from worst to best? Let me know all in the comments down below in your opinion. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to turn notifications for future videos. And also follow all my social media, it's all linked down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.